How to build UX test scripts. Today, I'm going to be showing you how to get the most out of your UX study participants in unmoderated studies. Hello and welcome, Nate from Userlytics here. Today, got a really awesome video for you about how to write UX test scripts. So we're going to be going through all of the best practices for how to get effective, unmoderated test scripts and get the most out of our participants. So let's jump into the action. All right, first we want to identify the purpose. If you've been watching any of my videos, I always start here. Before we just start writing tasks and activities, we need to determine the goals of the research. We want to understand key questions that we're going to want answered, maybe some hypothesis that we have about the study before we just go in and start building activities, right? We really want our test script to be structured. We also need to identify the desired outcomes. What are we looking to get out of the research? Who are we looking to share the research with? I'm going to be talking a lot more specifically about stakeholders and different ways we want to approach that in the next slide. Having clear goals and outcomes in mind before creating your test script will ensure that we ask the right questions. Building our test script is all about getting the right questions in, especially in unmoderated studies with the participants by themselves. It's important that we get our questions right. All right, now we need to involve key stakeholders. I know there's a lot of text on this slide, so I'm not going to be going through everything in specific detail, but just go ahead and pause the video if you want to go through these individually. But we need to understand first, who is going to be analyzing this research? If it's internal stakeholders, like people within our UX team, we can have a little bit more freedom in the terminology we use when we're sharing information out, and we can get a little more UX savvy because they're going to understand that language. But if we're sharing these insights with senior leadership, then we're going to want to be much more focused on business KPIs. When we build our test script, are we building it for someone who's going to understand UX or someone who is not going to understand UX, but is going to be more interested in specific key aspects of the business? So we need to understand who we're actually building the study for. Now, it is possible that you're doing it for an external stakeholder, maybe a client of yours, and you're building an asset for them. We want to translate those insights into layman's terms. So again, you have actually a lot of freedom when you're doing it for external stakeholders because they're really relying on you for the research. So you don't necessarily need to change the study a lot for them. You can build it based on what you actually need. We want to align research and business goals. I've talked about this a bunch already, so no need to go into this specifically. Go ahead and make sure that you're doing that when you're building your test script. We want to mix the research methods. Again, this is optional, but I always really like to combine a little bit of qualitative and quantitative in the study. Stakeholders are likely going to prefer one or the other, so we might want to actually include a little bit of both in case we're sharing this with multiple stakeholders. Lastly, we want to demonstrate the value. Again, it's important that we build our test script and it's going to provide value to whoever is going to be reviewing it. It could just be yourself that's going to be reviewing these results. So in that case, we can just build it exactly for what we need. But in case we're sharing this with someone else, let's make sure we build a script that's going to be valuable. Hey, real quick, Nate from Userlytics here. Thank you so much for watching the video. Just wanted to say if you need help building your UX studies or you want to scale your UX research team, email me right now at nbrown@userlytics.com so that we can get connected. I'm always here to help and it's free to get started. Now let's get back to the video. Okay, now one of my favorite terms is UX your test script. Really important here, we're a UX researcher, we're building assets every single day for a great experience, and we need to make sure we do the same for our participants. So I'm gonna be walking you through 3 best practices on how to get the best out of your participants here. This is gonna be really the meat of the video, so lock in. Okay, now we wanna be human. It sounds very obvious, but a lot of times when we go in to build a test script, we just start writing questions and we're using just like weird language that is not very human. We want to use natural language and speak to them in a friendly human tone, almost like we were just conversing with them directly. Now, we don't want to be too informal. Again, this is primarily for unmoderated studies, so we're not there with the participant. We want to make sure that the instructions are clear and that it's structured. Please stay away from big bricks of text. We're going to want to break those out. I love using bullet points in my UX studies. So just try to be human, understand that this is a real life person on the other end of that screen. We want to make sure that they understand what they need to be doing. All right, now go ahead and start this off right. I really always show this to people and tell them when they're asking me about their test scripts, because sometimes people will just go ahead and drop people right into feedback when they start their unmoderated study. What we want to do is first explain the goal of the test. Now be careful we don't bias here, right? We don't want to give away everything that they're going to be doing in the study, but generally you want to give them a little bit of introduction into what they're going to be doing instead of initially just jumping right into feedback. So explain the goal first. first, instruct users to think aloud. Really important if we're doing any kind of qualitative study here. Instruct them to think out loud so that participants don't start going through the study and not saying anything aloud, not sharing any verbal feedback. All right, now you'll notice introducing the asset and the prototype is pretty low on the bar here. It's third down. We want to introduce the asset only when it's time for them to be seeing it. We don't want to drop them immediately into the asset, but while we're explaining the goal of the test, because then they might actually navigate away and not be where they need to be when we actually need to give them the task, which is the last step. Give them the task to orient them. A lot of people drop users in initially and do very, very broad things, and that's okay if you're looking for broad general feedback, but generally give them a specific task early on so that they feel like they're doing and completing something, and then we can be a little more broad later. All right, now we need to refocus the participants. This is all about just specific tactics you can use to keep participants in the zone throughout the study. A lot of times we're doing 30-minute studies, and other times we're doing 60-minute studies. Both are very long for the participants, so here's a couple of good ideas for you. Number one, summarizing. After we have the participants go through a few activities, ask them to summarize their thoughts so far. Likely they've gone through, they're giving feedback, they're kind of in that flow, but before we move them on to a new task, it's a good idea to ask them about their thoughts so far, and this will likely bring out insights that they forgot to share earlier or just didn't think about. So really, really advanced technique here to get some extra insights out of the study that you might miss. Next one I call between tasks. Very easy here. Just re-explain the goals and the expectations for the participants throughout the study. Again, as they go through, they'll get into that flow state and they may kind of forget about what you had explained earlier. So don't just rely on your first activity or first instructions that the participant's going to remember that. We want to re-explain the goals and expectations kind of throughout the study. You can always repeat yourself, so don't worry about that. All right, last really good one for you is long study breaks. Again, if we're ever doing anything over 30 minutes or we're testing more than one asset, let's say we have a couple of main activities for them, go ahead and break those up. So they do the first activity and say, hey, you finished that. We're going to be moving you on to maybe a different website or a different app or some kind of different activity. And again, it just kind of gives the person a chance to rest, get a little bit of reprieve, and then now they're ready to jump into the next activity instead of just endless back-to-back activities, and then they're not really going to be sure when they're done. So again, just break it up so that person can really refocus on what they need to do. All right, that's it for me today. If you're looking to connect with me, maybe you want me to take a look at your test script, I'm happy to do so. Everything that I've shown you today was just me looking through thousands of my clients' test scripts and all of their studies and seeing what works best. So I thought I'd share that with you here. If you want me to take a look at your test script and give you some advice, reach out to me, nbrown@uselytics.com. That's the best way to reach me. I'm very fast to respond. Or you can give me a call at my phone number, 786-508-1715. That is my direct line. If you call that number, I will answer. So feel free to give me a shout and ask me some questions. I have a few different social media pages, UX_Nate for Instagram and TikTok, where I post daily videos of me talking about different things about UX, sometimes sales, sometimes motivation, and YouTube, which is where you're likely viewing this. Lots of other good videos here if you're looking for more free content on different UX practices. Now that's it for me today. I hope this was really helpful for you. I'll see you in the next one. Congratulations, you made it to the end of the video. I hope it was super insightful for you. Just wanted to say one more time, if you needed help with anything related to UX, email me at nbrown@uselytics.com so we can get connected. Now, until the next video, I hope you have the best day ever.